guys, so welcome back to Real Auto Reports. I'm Jonathan McGrew, and today we have the Real First Impressions video edition on this 2014 Range Rover, and this is the Long Wheelbase Supercharged V8 from Land Rover. So there's a lot to talk about. This is a pretty high-end and luxurious vehicle with a lot of performance and a high price tag. So let's jump in and tell you our Real First Impressions. All right, so from the front, the first thing you're going to notice about this newer design language in the Range Rover is that they're not as squared off as they used to be. We saw this with the new redesign of the Range Rover Sport, a vehicle we looked at earlier this year, leaving really the LR4 as one of the only squared off Land Rover Range Rover combinations anymore in the fleet, with the LR4 being the actual Land Rover brand still, and the Range Rovers taking this more rounded nose approach with the integrated bumper and grille design. And this neat, we pointed this out on the Range Rover Sport when we saw it earlier this year, this lovely LED running light, pipe light design here in the front. You can see that in the opening when the vehicle is coming towards you. You have the typical Land Rover looking grille. The thing that is interesting about these vehicles in their design language is now the top of the range here, the top of the Range Rover, yes, okay, no pun intended, but this design and this look is really more akin to the Evoque, which really started this more rounded, raked off design in the brand and in the family. You're also going to notice these lovely fog lights down here. You have a camera here and here, so you have that around view monitor that Land Rover has really been known for. Remember, these Range Rovers are what they use on Top Gear to help film when going out into the country and following around the cars because of their incredible off-road abilities and just the sheer power and room they come with as well. In Europe, the Land Rover is still the top of the heap. Whereas here in the US, we do have a few more options than we used to have, like the Explorer Sport, and we of course have the Jeep brand that competes directly in some ways, like the Overland Grand Cherokee. But on the whole, this is a fairly unique vehicle because of its off-road capability. You'd really have to go to the G-Wagon from Mercedes to get the same kind of prowess, in my opinion, as this vehicle has off-road. And the lineage is definitely there for Land Rover. Let's go take a look at the side and see how the profile is on this vehicle, and we'll continue our walk around from there. All right, so from the side, what you're going to notice about this Land Rover with the long wheelbase is how physically big this vehicle is. It's like the long wheelbase in the Jag we saw, in the XJ we saw earlier this year as well. And what I love about these vehicles is that they are huge. I mean, they really are large vehicles, but they have this racy, lovely design in them with this nice proportion between the actual body and the greenhouse here up on the top. So they still have that tall perspective, you know, that perception that they are a big, tall, capable vehicle, yet it's got a racy, sporty feel with these neat integrated fins here into the body panels, yet they're not actually real. They're just homage to previous generations of the Land Rover and previous vehicle design out there on the market. Now, some other things I want to point out are the wheels and tires on this vehicle. You have 21-inch rims in this package, and that fills the wheel wells of this vehicle really nice, but it is something you wouldn't have seen 10 or 20 years ago, really, because this is something more to this generation. It used to be big rims were a real liability, especially with potholes and things like that, but the vehicle drives nice and rides nice, even with such a big rim and tire package on it. Now, the other neat features from the side, notice this big back door. You can get in and out of this vehicle very easily as a passenger. And then if you don't get it shut all the way, it's got the soft touch close that is really nice, a very nice luxurious feature and an additional option on the Land Rover. You have blind spot monitoring in the mirrors, and of course your turn signals in the mirrors as well, and these will power fold when you lock from the touch here on the door. Now, I would actually have to have the key in my pocket for that to work, but it's in the console right now. But when you lock the vehicle, you can set it to fold the mirrors in, which is a nice feature, especially if you're parking in the city, in tight parking garages, or in your own garage so you don't clip the mirrors as you walk by. These are just features that bring this whole package together. But one of the other things I want to point out is this black gloss here around the windows and down the window trim. Notice that there's not a ton of chrome on this vehicle. It is all satin finish trim, and gloss black trimming gives it a nice stately presence without too much flash. So it's a very classy vehicle, and I really happen to like how it's turned out in this newer generation. You can really see the rounder, lower, more performance-oriented design language that Land Rover has moved to from the previous more boxy, squared-off generation that we've seen for the last couple decades, really. Let's go take a look at the back. We'll go inside and under the hood. So keep tuned and we will cover it. All right, so from the back, I like the design language of this Range Rover a lot. I like the long wheelbase on the side, but from the back, it's a nice package. You've got your high third brake light. You've got your windshield wiper hidden up here under the rear spoiler, which also helps with the drag coefficient and the downforce. These vehicles do have a better drag coefficient than the previous generation Land Rover, Range Rover. And the other thing is that they are all supercharged now. You don't have that non-supercharged V8 and then the supercharged V8. Now you have a supercharged V6 and then supercharged V8 option. And so when you go and you look at these vehicles, you get a lot of performance and a lot of room with your features, especially in this long wheelbase. Notice how you have the power liftgate and the drop gate opens automatically. That is not something that happens on a lot of the vehicles that we test. In fact, it's one of my gripes is that you actually have to lift this up on a lot of vehicles because with the power tailgate, it will not close. Now, in our real video, we'll show the rear seats dropping as well, but those switches are right here, and you can just easily press the power buttons and the seats close down to the floor so that you can load things in. Now, it's not exactly a flat load floor, which is a little bit disappointing from a first impressions perspective, because you really want to be able to slide things in and have a nice flat load floor when you need that kind of capability. But with the poofiness of the seats and the amount of electronics that are in there for the power recline and the power bolsters and all of that in this vehicle, you don't get that complete load floor. Now, the other thing that is interesting about this is that from the key, I can close the rear tailgate, which is kind of neat because, well, of course now it doesn't want to work, but I could before. Well, that's interesting. But so you can hit the top button for the power close and it'll close the bottom and the top. Now, what's interesting about this from a first impressions perspective is sometimes these vehicles are a bit finicky. So see, I open the tailgate here with the key, and then I close the tailgate with the key. Go figure. Real first impressions, have no idea. But just, you know, these vehicles sometimes are a bit touchy. We find that with all of the ones that have all this technology. So we might have to read the book on this one and follow up in our real video. But the thing about it is that it is luxurious, it is capable, and also something I forget to point out a lot is it has a full trailering package under here with all the wiring and everything, so you can tow as well. Let's go take a look at the interior and under the hood, take it out for a quick spin, and that'll be the real first impressions on this Range Rover. All right, so from the interior here, I would say the driver's seat, but I wanted to sit in the back where we have all this legroom. I'm about 6 foot and the seat is set for me to drive. So you can see how much room I have here, about 2 fists before I hit the back of that front seat. That's pretty incredible for an SUV like this. This is definitely a full size. Now it only seats 5, but when you're a luxury vehicle, that may not be a problem. But in this package, it seats 5, and you have this lovely power reclining seat, so you don't have to sit so vertical either, and you don't have to play around with the manual controls while your driver's driving you around. You also have a lumbar support control here on the rear seat as well. All of your rear controls are here in the middle, in the back of the center console, which is nice. You have plenty of storage too, with a power port that goes way down deep in there. You can put, well, you know, like a big gulp deep of kind of deep. That's what I'm talking about. You can put it all the way in there, shut the lid. You also have door pockets and rear window shades that are powered, so when you hit the window button, that rear shade goes down first, then you hit it again and the rear window will drop. It is an incredible vehicle. Rear entertainment system, you've got your aux ports and everything right here, all integrated real nicely. You have multiple power ports down here for any of the devices that you're plugging in besides what you're playing out of the front entertainment system. It's just an incredible vehicle. When you first get in, your first impressions are, wow, this is pretty nice. And I would argue that these back seats are some of the most comfortable in the industry. So, well, we'll have to give you more details in the real video, but for now, let's go check out what's under the hood. All right, so under the hood, you have the supercharged Range Rover V8. Now, this is not going to be all that unfamiliar to people who are used to the Range Rover brand. Range Rover's offered a supercharged V8 for decades now, but this is pretty cool in that it is 510 horsepower with a really nice economy figure for such a luxurious and powerful vehicle. You're going to get 14 city and 19 highway with a combined EPA rating of 16. Now, they're getting that kind of fuel economy out of such a big and powerful vehicle with the all-terrain system and the all-wheel drive and all of that. They're getting that by having auto stop-start technology, which is actually pretty smooth from our first impressions. They are also doing that by reducing weight with the aluminum body and chassis. So that is helping quite a bit with this vehicle to make it more efficient out on the road. They also have a multi-speed transmission, so you no longer have 5 or 6 speeds, but you have an 8-speed transmission, and that is helping as well. This is a pretty capable vehicle and meant to tackle all kinds of terrains and climates, so it definitely will drink some more fuel based on the power and all-wheel drive and traction and profile and weight that it's carrying with all the luxury features. But all in all is not bad compared to other vehicles in the same price point and luxury point. And so I give them a pretty good pass on this. I think in the future, though, we'll see these vehicles getting more and more efficient as they find ways to make more and more power out of engines that are lighter and vehicles that are lighter in total weight. So it's neat to see that Range Rover putting a lot of technology in these, and it's also neat to see that it hasn't changed the perception of what you're driving. These vehicles definitely drive better than their 30-year-old predecessors, and that's what we like to see in the automotive industry and as consumers. We like to know that we're getting the best of the best for the time, and this vehicle has an amazing powertrain and transmission, and what's more is that they are actually more reliable today than they've been in the past 10-15 years, and that is also a nice thing to see when you're paying almost $120,000 MSRP. Let's hit the road and see how it drives from a real first impressions perspective, then we'll come back for the real wrap-up. All right, so from a real first impressions driving perspective, the first thing you notice about this Range Rover with the long wheelbase is that it is large, but it is easy to drive. It has a lovely steering feel. It has good pickup, which it should have with 510 horsepower coming out of this supercharged V8. The thing I notice about it is that it also has amazing brakes, which probably accounts for the sense of security in this vehicle. When you get on it right from the get-go, it is very quick, and that's already over 30 miles an hour. I think that anyone who drives one of these vehicles and is in the market to buy something of this caliber is going to be very impressed with the vehicle in and of itself. It is a vehicle that does not feel hard to drive, given that it is a larger full-size SUV with the long wheelbase, and yet its visibility out of the vehicle is pretty good as well, even with the power sunshades in the rear and the extra thick headrests and all of that. I think they've done an amazing job to make this vehicle easy to drive, and that's just our first impressions. Make sure you come back for the real video, the real review, where we take a more in-depth look at the Range Rover here and all of the good and bad points. So let's get to our real wrap-up, and well, make sure you join us for more reviews down the road. So that's the Real First Impressions video edition on this 2014 Range Rover by Land Rover. Now this is the long wheelbase edition, and it is the top end in the power department with the V8 Supercharged. That means you're getting 510 horsepower out of this supercharged V8, which is pretty incredible when you consider the fuel economy that you can also get out of this, considering the all aluminum chassis that it has. That is like when we looked at the new Range Rover Sport. You're seeing this upgrade in metals and technology in these vehicles, and it also has stop-start technology. So 14 miles per gallon city and 19 highways, not too shabby for such a high-end, high-performance luxury vehicle. Now these vehicles aren't for everyone, and at a price tag of about $123,000 is tested, it is definitely going to be for the select few who are willing to pay this kind of money for a vehicle. This is in your M edition, M6 or M7 type of area for the BMWs, your high-end S-classes or AMGs, the S55 AMG from Mercedes. That's the type of category in the sedans this are. If you're looking at cross-shopping this with other SUVs, you're going to be looking at the X5 or even the performance edition of that. You're going to be looking at the G-Wagon from Mercedes or the GL, the big Mercedes SUV. You're also going to be looking at something like the Q7, and you might be looking at any of those with the performance packages to get similar types of performance that's coming out of this top-of-the-range Range Rover. Now, this is not the highest end you can get either, so it does go up from there. There is another package above what we are looking at here. But from a real first impressions perspective, with the adjustable height for off-road, you have your adjustable height for getting out. It's called the accessible height, so you can get out of the vehicle more easily, and that's why you see it so low here in our wrap-up. This vehicle is very capable. It has an amazing interior, all the way from the front massaging seats with heated and cooled feature to the rear seats that power recline and also have heated and cooled features built into them as well. You can fold the rear seats down from the back of the vehicle for loading cargo. It is just a well thought out vehicle with amazing style. Now, there are some nits and some things that we want to talk about in our real video, so stay tuned for that, because we'll cover the good, bad, the ugly, and the supreme with this kind of luxury vehicle. So make sure you come back. I'm Jonathan McGrew. This is Real Auto Reports right here at Real Auto Ranch, and we'll see you down the road.